Grant Nicholas of Feeder joins me, Ned, on the Underground's Amped. Grant, how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
I'm going really well, thank you. We are all about alternative music that hits different, and that is you to a T, Grant, with Feeder. Now, I was reading somewhere that when you guys first got started, you were having troubles breaking into the scene in the UK, and you thought you may have been more suited to the American style. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I think we were somewhere in between because we weren't really Britpop. Well, that was like a big scene here. Back in the sort of early '90s. We were a lot heavier, but we had like melodies and we had kind of quite structured songs. I'm a bit of a pop guy at heart, but I also love heavy
Yeah.
guitar. So I'm sort of, I suppose we're like a heavy metal pop band, really. But it's like, yeah, I think it's because we didn't really tick the box of what was, that whole Britpop thing. We were a lot heavier. But we ended up, doing loads of shows with lots of Britpop bands, some that went on to be really successful. And we built our own following, and then and then I think with the whole American thing that blew up with like Nirvana and bands like that, Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam, we kind of ticked that box for some of those people, but also some of the Britpop crowd quite liked this as well because I suppose we were very song based and we still had like melodies, even though we were a lot heavier. So yeah, we didn't really we didn't really fit into the trend, but we probably looked more like a Britpop band in some way than like we looked a bit more of an indie thing. We'd never been sort of
Yeah.
we've never been a studs and leather kind of rock band. you know. So I suppose image wise, we kind of we didn't look out of place with in that era, but our music was quite a lot heavier and just a bit different. But in some way, maybe that's what made us sort of get noticed in the end.
Yeah, definitely. So, what do you think was the final thing in the end that did make you get noticed and get you signed to your first label then, Grant?
You know what? I think it was just down to the songs. I think they liked the songs, and they knew that as a writer, I could write heavy stuff, but also, like more acoustic and more anthemic songs. I think they knew that because I had, some of the early stuff I had in demos. It had that side as well as the heavier side. Although we were kind of known as being quite energetic live, we always had some like very melodic songs as well that sort of showed the
Yeah.
different sides of the band. I think that was a massive help because we weren't just one thing, and. And I think it was just really hard work, just playing and playing and playing, building up like a loyal fan base. Each gig, more people came, and I think people started to notice that. And then, when we got to a certain level, and we started to sell out like smaller venues, then obviously more kind of companies got interested. But it did take us a long time. It wasn't overnight. I can tell you, it was a lot of a lot of gigging, a lot of determination, a lot of hard work. Yeah, and it all came together. But it didn't. It wasn't overnight success.
Yeah, it's because you're that little bit out of the genre, I guess, out of the niche sort of thing. Like you said, like it's heavy metal pop. It's that little bit different, but great to see
Yeah.
that it all turned out well in the end.
Yeah, I mean, when I say that, I mean, what I mean is I love like melodic songs, and I love melodic music. As a kid, I listened to
Same.
like a lot of pop music, like, when I was really young, like, ABBA and stuff like that. But then I really got into like, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and a lot of prog stuff, and I was into ELO and, Pink Floyd. But I also loved, a lot of punk rock, a lot of it, and even like, bands like Early Police and all those bands were, big influence on us and on me as a writer. In my record collection went from Sex Pistols, to Kate Bush, to Fleetwood Mac,
Oh,
to Black Sabbath, to the Sex Pistols. So I've had a pretty eclectic kind of musical upbringing, coming from a small town in Wales. A lot of my mates were into rock. Some of them were into punk rock. Some were into a lot of prog rock and some more American bands. So I got introduced to a bit of the whole AOR thing as well, which some
okay.
people diss, but there's some great songwriting in that era, and people. I think people like respect that 80s thing a bit more now than they did because it got a bit of a bad rap for a while because there was a lot of awful music around as well in the 80s, but there was some great pop music around, and it was probably one of the best eras for pop music. And there was some great songwriting around, as some great bands with some some great songwriters. So that was influential on me as well. So, and that's all gone into the feeder pot, and and what comes out is us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I was also reading that you started off like busking and doing all that sort of thing as well. Grant really paved your way. It made me think,
Yeah,
what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't doing music, if you weren't doing feeder? What would you be doing, do you think?
I'll be a bank robber.
Yes!
Yeah. No,
I love how long it took you to answer that. It's like you had it planned.
no, no. I mean, I worked in recording. Basically, I moved up from Wales. I was trying to get a job in a famous studio where I actually grew up near, called Rockfield, where loads of
Yeah.
famous bands recorded, like Queen and everyone. And I couldn't get a job there at the time, so I moved. I basically just went like knocking on doors in London. I got a job in a recording studio. I worked there for 3 years as a tape op, T-boy, doing a bit of engineering, sort of, learning my way around the studio a bit. So I did that for 3 years, and then then I decided I really I was kind of missing. I thought, do I want to be an engineer, like producer, or do I want to sort of be more of a songwriter? Maybe get in a band and do a lot, and do more like production on that. So I decided to leave the studio, then, and that's when I was doing push bike touring. I was also doing busking, and that was really, and then after various trying out a few different bands and a few acoustic things, uh, Feeder came, and that was just sort of combination of working with different people, and then it ended up being our own little band, and yeah, it all went from there really. But if I wasn't doing this, I really don't know. Maybe something like creative, probably something like in the art world, or maybe fashion world, or something like that, maybe.
Something out there like that. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm
awesome
not.
right
Yeah, I
there.
wouldn't be. I certainly wouldn't be. I'm not particularly sort of great at maths. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be a sort of nuclear physicist or anything like that.
Me either, Grant. Now, it's been 14 years since you've been out our way. What's the sort of first thing that comes to mind when you think of Australia?
Just really fun. Uh, you're relaxed. Um, Good food as well. Actually, well, I seem to remember having really good food when we were there. Nice people. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. It's. I mean, I remember it being seriously hot as well.
Yeah, you shouldn't be too
uh,
bad in April.
but yeah, I always think of beer. It's an obvious thing, but you Aussies sort of like your beers. But you know what? I mean, we've always been really well looked after there. It felt, I don't know what it is for Australia. It's sort of like UK and America, but a bit more relaxed. It's really hard to put your finger on it, but um, it just seems a little bit more chilled out in some way. I don't know if you'd agree with that living there, but um, yeah, there just seems to be, don't know, a bit more. Don't know. I just find it a bit more chilled out, if that
Yeah, I
makes
like
sense. But then
that.
I haven't been there for a while, so it may have changed.
Get here and it'll be all hectic and chaos. No, I think you're pretty spot on there. I've chatted to a bunch of guys from the UK before. Are you into the Australian TV programs and stuff over there, or not really? Like Neighbours, Home and Away, the works.
I used to be like growing up, yeah, neighbours. I used to be into when I was younger, like
Yeah,
the sort of Kylie days. But that was going back when I was still living in Wales and sort of at school and stuff. But yeah, I used to watch it then, but I've just sort of lost track of it after that. Really, I think it was huge then, and like TV was a big thing then. But
yeah,
now
true.
it's all different. It's a different world now. But no, I can't say that I really follow it now. But I didn't, I didn't meet Kylie once.
Did you? There you go.
Yeah. And we supported years and years ago before we kind of really broke them, where we're really. I don't know even if we were even signed, or maybe we were just signed, or just before we got signed. We managed to get support with it in excess,
That's
um,
amazing.
and they were a great band in excess. Yeah, talking about pop music, a band from the sort of 80s into 90s. They were a really good band, and they were a great live band. And I don't think they quite got the sort of like credit they deserved, because I think they were a really good band, and they were kind of rock and roll. Even though they were a pop band, they had a bit of a rock and roll edge to them. They were kind of like
Definitely.
they had a bit of a Rolling Stones element to them, and they had a bit of something about them. And he's a great frontman. So. Um, yeah, so I met Kylie because she was I think she was dating Mike. She might have been dating Michael Hutchins at the time. I can't remember. I think that's why she was there. And I just met him up very briefly, and he was really nice. And I met her, and she was very nice. But it was only a very quick hi with support band.
And not enough time to get the
But the band
collaboration
were really
happening,
nice. I
correct?
remember hanging out with a few of the members in the bar after the gig, and they were really down to earth, and they were nice. Yeah, they were a good band. They were they were massive at one point.
Definitely, In Excess are huge. All right,
Yeah.
no, I love that right there. Your 12 studio albums down with Feeder, the Black Red album. It's still got
Yeah.
plenty of legs on it, I think, Grant. But are you guys back in the studio yet working on new material, or when will we see that?
Well, I mean, I've been pretty busy because we did like Torpedo, which is kind of connected to this one. So this is a double album. So it's basically like two standalone albums in one, really. So it's, it's quite a lot of music. It's 18 tracks if you include the intro.
Yeah,
And then we just, and Torpedo didn't come out that long ago. So I'm pretty, we don't sort of take 5 years in between albums. We tend to be, I mean, I tend to write a lot of songs, but I basically wrote, I got basically like another album's worth already written and recorded, but
damn.
I'm not sure whether it'll end up being the next Feeder album or whether it'll end up being on, something, maybe we do a little EP or something different. I'm not quite sure. It's quite different to the Black Red album, I would say, and the previous one. So whether it feels like the right thing we want to do when we decide to do another record, whether we just use the tracks and do a few singles or EPs in between, I'm not quite sure. I'm not in any massive hurry to like rush into the next Feeder album because I think we're still living with this one because it feels it's a big body of work. So hopefully it keeps the sort of fan base happy for a while, and it gives us a chance to actually go out and do more shows and come to places like Australia and actually play, obviously play to you guys as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we are really looking forward to it
Yeah.
now. Now, Grant, very well answered first up, but I was reading while most of their peers faded away, Feeder cemented their place as one of the most enduring acts in modern rock, with over 20 million albums sold, multiple number one albums in the UK charts. That's a big like write up right there. So I wanted to know, what defines success to you?
That's a really typical one, isn't it? I mean, if you're still doing it, that means you're doing, you're surviving and you're doing something right.
True.
But I mean, success, I suppose, is, you know, it's very hard to like define, isn't it? I don't think to me, I don't define success with how much money you make and stuff like that. Obviously, that's that's a bonus, but it's not. I think longevity
Yeah,
really defines. I think if you're still doing it, you still got like a fan base, which is, our fan base is really mixed. It goes from really young kids, like literally that have got into Feeder through their mums and dads and older brothers and sisters in the same way as I got into music. So we literally have 8-year-olds at our gigs, and then we have like
that's cool.
60-year-olds. So it's bizarre. And then we have a lot of we always had a bit of a sort of a younger like surfy skate following kind of thing because they're into sort of bands like us. So we've still got a bit of that element, but we've got some of the diehard fans as well. And I think we're really lucky. That to me, is a band that okay, yeah, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're doing what we do because this is with the music that we like doing, and this is what feels sort of natural to us. We do experiment a lot as well. It's not just throw things down the same every time we go in the studio. But I think to answer your question, I think longevity, the fact we're still here doing it, the fact we're still we're still hungry for it. But I mean, how do you define success? I mean, it's difficult to say nowadays because it's not about having number one albums anymore. It's about like streaming and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to define, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. But I guess, like in your case, definitely, like you are still making amazing music and touring the world and doing it all. That's successful to me. You're not out there working a 9 to 5. That's amazing.
No, I mean it is. It is a dream, and I'm very lucky that I'm still doing it. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a lot of hard work as well. And there's a lot of ups and downs about being in any entertainment business. Whether you're an actor or whatever you are,
Yeah,
a band. You do take a lot of criticism, a lot of knocks. I think even more so now because you've got social media, so you have to really,
exactly.
if you want to go on there, it's literally it can do your head in. But everyone's a critic now, which, in the old days, it would be like, it's just, like a journalist, you would review your album. If you didn't like it, oh, okay, yeah, it's to upset you, but you just move on. But now you've got like a million people that can criticize it.
Yeah,
So it is a different world, but I think you just got to follow you just got to follow your dream and like follow your art really. Because I think as soon as you compromise on your music and you do music for other people too much, you end up kind of you kind of do it for the wrong reasons. So what we try and do is, and then what I really try and do even more so now I'm older is I think, well, I want to make music that I think's good, and hopefully somebody else that is going to like it, and some of the fans will like it. Because otherwise, it's a compromise, and I don't want to do that. I'm too old to compromise.
yeah. No, very
You know,
well said right
you
there. And
know, of course, you want people to like what you do, but you can't second guess it, and then you end up doing something it doesn't work, and then you end up being even more unhappy.
Yeah, I love it. Here's a bit of a time for a bit of a dad joke here for you, Grant. Are you going to change up the Buck Rogers lyrics in any way? Like he's got a brand new car with a Bluetooth player or something like that.
It's a bit, that song's a bit dated now, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's still my favourite. It's still many people's
You
favourite.
know what? It's the most, but in some way that makes it more, it makes it more kind of a thing. The fact that it sort of reflects on what that era was, And I mean, it's
Definitely.
funny because everyone goes, "Oh, CD players, really dated. You can't even buy a car." Very rarely now with a CD player, unless you buy an old car. But we still, everyone's still making CDs. It still sells more than
True.
vinyl, actually, overall. So it's like, why are we making this thing, this classic thing, that people don't even play? So they haven't got a CD player at home. It's
That's so
ridiculous.
true. That's like
It
I
is
don't have
true.
a CD player at the moment, but I love collecting CDs. I've got a bunch of them behind me. It's crazy.
I
But
mean,
thank you. Oh, sorry, go.
I kept my car. I got Lexus, and I kept it purely because it's actually got a CD player in it. And when I'm burning off rough CDs and listening to mixes, I actually think, well, if I'm going to put out this, Feed are going to release something on a CD, I want to at least get that experience still. And I feel otherwise it feels a little bit, why are we doing it? Let's not bother doing a CD. So I'm pretty old school like that, And but as far as the lyric thing goes, listen, that song I wrote, I'll be real quick on this, but I wrote that song, for another band. It was a US band.
Oh, there you go.
They were working with a big producer called Gil Norton that did a lot of the Pixies stuff and Foo Fighters, Echo and the Bunnymen. I always wanted to work with him. He was really in demand, and somehow I was put forward to maybe help or like co-write a song with this band, and it would get me to meet Gil, and maybe he'd come and work with Feeder after. So I wrote that song, just guide lyrics, like one night after a few glasses of wine too many. It's got a bit of a slight Pixies influence, so I thought Gil would like it. And in the end, I met Gil. He said he should keep the song. Our record company wouldn't let me give it away, and it ended up being a big hit for us. It's bizarre.
That's
It
wild,
was
right
never
there.
it was
Lucky
never going
you
to be a
kept it.
feeder song, and even the lyrics were just guide lyrics, just for me, just for him to get an idea of the sort of top line. He was going to write his own lyrics, and if he wanted it, here you are. And it was just bizarre, and I barely even remember even writing them, and then it just became this thing. And when I tried to rewrite it, everyone said, "Oh no, you need to keep all the CD player line, all that stuff." I was like, "They're just guy goofing around lyrics," but I was in a corner, and they were like, don't mess with it. So I left it, and it ended up being this, like crazy hit for us. But it doesn't really reflect necessarily for Feeder and what we are as a band. And certainly, I think I've written way, I wouldn't say better, but different songs that have a bit more depth. But it does a certain thing. It ticks a certain box, and it's just connected with people. And we're still playing it. What? 20 something years later, so it obviously has stood the test of time somehow.
Oh man, thank you so much for sharing that story, man. Love that right there. We're running out of time, Grant, but I could talk to you all day. Very much appreciate you taking time out. Be sure to check these guys out. It is Feeder heading our way in April, playing in Perth on the 5th, Adelaide on the 6th, Melbourne on the 9th, the 10th in Sydney, and wrapping things up on the 11th in Brisbane. Tickets available now through thephoenix.au. Hit this man up on Instagram.com/Grant Nicholas. Thanks so much for joining me, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. I mean, we'll be playing, like a few classics on the tour as well. So obviously some Black Red stuff. We'll do a few of the big hitters as well. So it'll be a bit of a mixture for anyone coming to see us. But what I would say is, I don't know when we'll be back next. So if you're a Feeder fan, this is the time to get a ticket and come to see us.
Oh, definitely. Very much looking forward to it.
All right, take care, man. Thanks a lot.